Welcome to Serial Podcast 9.
Hello, I'm the intro.
And I'm Gerard from SerialNINE.
Hello, I'm Kevin Peterson from SerialNINE.
And I'm Ryan Benoit from not SerialNINE. And this is SerialPodcastNine. So today, because hopefully this episode is airing on July 7th, we're going to talk about
RX7s, apparently.
RX7s.
Oh, I thought we were going to talk about X7s because that seems more in line with SerialNINE. No, I'm fucking playing.
I mean, I'd love to talk about X7s.
Yeah, I'm more down to talk about X7s.
Well, I think we'll get there.
Talk about X7s.
Yeah.
I think we'll get there. Should July 7th? That'll be the first question that we we get into. But first, we actually have a question from a listener. Now, if you've listened to a lot of these episodes, we've grazed over it a few times. But I think if we be really poignant about it, that would be good. Question comes from JN Miata, and they ask, I'd love to hear about what kind of media, so YouTube, movies, magazines, etc., influenced the group and what the group is currently watching / reading. Thanks! !
Yeah, I don't know. I had a bunch of weird different car magazines growing up. Like from, import mags and lowrider mags and like rat rod mags. But then it became like Video Option, that sort of stuff. And then the internet came out and you could like download videos on Kazaa and like LimeWire.
But what do you watch, listen to, and like what do you engage with now, I guess?
Kevin doesn't watch YouTube.
I mean, I do watch some YouTube, but yeah, I don't know.
How to sharpen a knife.
Yeah, exactly.
How to start a fire with toilet paper and fucking sticks.
I watch like videos of like grass growing and like paint drying.
Yeah.
Like the YouTube for cats, where they're just like birds on the screen for 10 hours. That's a good one.
Where do you get your car media? Or is it like, I guess it would be Instagram, isn't it? Don't you just get it from Instagram?
Yeah, I guess I would primarily get it from Instagram and my Facebook page, or my Facebook, and yeah, I don't know, YouTube. But I don't consistently watch many YouTube channels.
Yeah, I don't really either. And I always mean to, but it's a thing I would like to do, but I don't. But I'll answer after. Gerard, I feel like I could answer Gerard's. I feel like I could answer it for Gerard. Would that be more fun? I don't know. But Gerard, you try.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
You should almost like get Gerard to not listen and answer for Gerard, and then have Gerard come back and give his answer.
Like the dating game or whatever.
Yeah, exactly.
Couples game. I'm pretty sure Gerard's answer is he he didn't like Super Street growing up. Sport Compact Tuner, I think he liked, and maybe like the Honda magazines. And then when he got older, it was like he fully went into just like the VIP magazines from Japan. And then he also really like in the 2000s, 2003 era-ish, he really dived into like Option magazine, and that was kind of his jam. And then if you were to fast forward to today, Gerard, I think, watches YouTube videos of people that have really high production value. So like that Enot, I think, is one that Gerard really likes. And then the tricky thing about Gerard is he also has this giant soft spot for like all things Russian automotive related. So it's always like, what's going on in Russia? And Gerard will be like, this is what they're doing in Russia. And it's the only car guy I've ever met that's like very occupied with what's going on in Russia.
When you said soft spot, I thought you were going to start talking about like food videos.
Oh, no. I know. What did I miss, Gerard?
Oh, okay. Yeah. So growing up, I was very into like Turbo magazine, Sport Compact Car, and all those were like pretty good, but Turbo seemed to kind of have the most tech and like was like the most cutting edge as far as like the craziest stuff. But I was also into like cars and car conversions, which is like, British weird fucking built cars and weird stuff like that. And like I was into British Fords and German Fords and American Fords, so hot rod magazines as well. I grew up on Car and Driver, Road and Track, like literally had subscriptions the whole time I was growing up, so I read all that stuff. But yeah, then it progressed basically from from Turbo Magazine and like the Honda, California tuning stuff to like option videos. I saw my first drifting video, and then I saw that video with Tezuka in the JZX81, and I was like, yo, what the hell's that? And then literally religiously watching option every Sunday or every sort of thing I can get my hands on. And then I discovered Dory10 magazine, so Drift Heaven, and I discovered a Japanese bookstore called Iwase, and then I basically just went and got a subscription to Dory10 and VIP Style, and I would go there religiously and pick up my magazines every month, and I probably have 4 to 6 years worth of Dory10 and VIP Style magazines that were very influential to me. Yeah, my favorite stuff is a culmination of like drifting and VIP, so sedans make sense and drifting makes sense. And
yeah, Gerard and I both have all of our magazines from growing up, like at the shop. So
mine are actually at my house, but I do have some at the shop. But yeah, I have like stacks and stacks here at home.
I was looking at some of them today. Like I always look at the spines of them, and I'm like, oh, I should look at this. But then I feel weird just like diving into your guys' shit, and being like, I'm just gonna
that's what it's there for.
I know, but they look real. Like at this point, they're probably like 20-year-old magazines or 30-year-old magazines. Yeah, it just seems like not to fuck with. But it would be educational.
What else are they for?
Memories, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah. What's crazy though is like I could probably open like a copy of VIP Style like 2006, 2005, and like the shit is the same. You know what I mean? Like the cars might be slightly different because they're older and newer. They probably have newer cars and stuff now, but like everything, it always just goes in a circle. And like the stuff that actually is like classically dope just always stays. Same as drift cars. You know what I mean?
We always hold on to the good stuff.
The coolest drift cars. Yeah, like the coolest drift cars, in my opinion, haven't really changed since 2003. Like,
yeah, that's fair. So what are you watching or listening to now? Aside from all that like classic stuff, where do you go to get your
I mean, honestly, I don't have a whole lot of time to dive into like YouTubers videos and stuff like that, but I do watch like I like seeing stuff like Salmon, Adam LZ. I do watch those guys. I did watch EOT for a bit.
Salmon is what I meant to say.
Pretty good. Yeah, I mean, I do watch EOT for a bit. The production was definitely really good. He blew up real fast. But I do kind of more enjoy stuff like Ryan Turk. He's building that Formula Supra, stuff like that, and then just like car builds that are pretty crazy. And like you said, Russian stuff like HGK, those guys, and basically like the European Drift Series, the Russian Drift Series, and anything that's like ridiculous from like Latvia and like Eastern Europe and like I don't know, like all those places are just so cool and like different from here that it just seems like a really weird scene, which is funny because those drift cars don't really resemble ours that much. Like their cars are like really a lot different than like what we think is cool, quote unquote. But yeah, it's just so crazy. The scene's quite a bit different. And then there's a lot of like street drifting in Russia that's like ridiculous, like
so nuts.
Super crazy. So it's like like we got street drifting here, but it's not like that. Like their street drifting is like 4 cars deep managing down in front of St. Petersburg, like in the downtown core type of thing. I'm just like, how do you guys even do this? So crazy. But or like the snow drifting in Russia is like it's not like snow drifting here. Like I've been snow drifting here and I'm like, top a second going like 100 something, but these guys are in like 4th gear managing at like 170 down a highway, like balls to the walls. And I'm just like, this is insane. Like, this is so crazy. So yeah, I mean, that's mainly on like Instagram and maybe, some stuff on YouTube, but yeah.
You did forget to mention that sometimes you go down rabbit holes of listening to exhaust notes of what your engine in the QX would sound like.
Oh yeah, like I'm very into, like I don't know, I kind of do that thing where I like get into something and I just really really get into it. So yeah, I like did a ton of research on like VK56s and like everyone's experience with them and like Australian supercars and like that one car in Australia that like has 800 horse VK and like Chris Forsberg and stuff like that. And maybe it's a crazy cam profile for a 1 or 2 JZ or something, and I'll just like go down a rabbit hole and watch hundreds of videos on that. So
yeah. So for me, I would get Kevin to answer for me like I did for Gerard, but Kevin asked me if my last name had 2 T's in it today, so I'm not sure if Kevin could answer the questions about me.
Ben Watt? Ben
yeah.
Watt?
Does it have 2 T's? You literally
I always call him Benoit though.
Literally like once a week we sit on a Zoom call and my full name is out in front of you.
Is it? All I see is your face. I don't see your name. Oh, there it is.
So I'll do mine really quickly. I grew up on Super Street because I inherited a subscription from my brother. So I had that for a very long time.
You're going to say Pass Mag.
No, I'm not. I didn't like Pass Mag. None of that. Get that out of my life. It was mostly Super Street. And then it would go to, obviously there was like the stuff on the Speed Channel when it was around. I'd watch some of that. And then we went through this in the social media episode where I say like, blogs replaced magazines, so I followed blogs. I was super into Speed Hunters. I got a giant soft spot for like the Fat Lace / Illest Mark Arsenal conglomerate, and then from there it was like probably would just go to like Instagram, and I would say so. What I watch now or engage with now is not actually like a ton of stuff. Occasionally I'll see something that someone like really recommends and I'll watch it. Or if I'm
like how to put a CD009 in your IS300.
Yeah. Like if SerialNine releases a video, even if I'm not doing it, I'll watch Gerard use a hammer to the beat of a song that he put a lot into, or I'll watch a video of Kevin do the bushings anyway. Is that what you did? I don't even remember.
You made the
engine mounts. Engine mounts. Nope, not engine mounts.
No, they were freaking big bushings.
They were bushings.
Subframe bushings.
Yeah. Subframe bushings, yeah. But I think what I mostly do now is there's the people that I follow on Instagram or on Facebook, and a lot of the people that I follow very closely are people that I'm kind of like I'm friends with or have like a relationship with, and I guess I just watch what they're doing. So like I'd be very interested in like what the guys at Proceed are doing, or like what SerialNine's, that sense of it. And I just try to keep my finger on the pulse of what all the people in like the realm of what I'm interested in are doing. And then I try to create media that supports that when I have the time to do it. I think I stopped really engaging in a lot of media because I felt like it influenced me way too much in what I was doing. And I kept always trying to emulate other people when I should have been just trying to do my own thing. Anyway, I don't know if that really answers it, but that's into my psyche, I guess. This just turned into let's just change the subject.
There's some media for you, huh?
Yeah, there's that. All right. So you guys, this will air on July 7th. Car guys love any excuse to post a picture of their car on social media, or cars that they appreciate. And the sense that we've just taken calendar months and attached them to chassis codes or car models or models of cars is just another excuse. And I feel like one of the bigger ones is RX7 day. Now, I tried to get someone that was into RX7s to be on the show. They weren't super into it. We could have had Eric back, but I feel like he used his one card for the Toyota trucks. So
he played his hand.
Yeah, he's got one shot at the show. No, he'll be back some point. But then I remembered, hey, I know of this guy who once put a rotary in a Corolla, and this other guy who had an FB that shot flames but wasn't really fast. People just thought he was wild.
And has built like an FC and an FD.
Oh, Gerard, I wasn't actually talking about you. No, I was.
Oh, okay, sure.
Ooh,
sure.
Yeah. Jeez, Gerard, not everything's about you.
Yeah, I mean, surprisingly for Toyota fanatics and sedan drifters, we have a little bit of experience with rotaries and RX7s.
Yeah,
I guess,
just to clarify, I want to make sure, Kevin, you never owned an RX7. You just had a rotary engine, right?
I've never owned an RX7 though. That's
Got
correct.
it.
I would own an RX-7. I swear, even to this day, I would still. They're like one of the few cars that I tickle my fancy, if you will.
Oof.
Oof.
Which
Okay,
one
but
would
the
you?
thing is, you have to buy a non-Toyota. You have to buy a non-Toyota once in your life to actually experience other cars other than Toyotas.
Yeah, it's true. I bought a Subaru once, and
Like, when's the last time you bought a non-Toyota? Okay,
Probably
the
when-
Subaru was like,
probably
yeah,
when
that
I
was a
bought that
bust.
terrible lemon of a Subaru.
The
Yeah.
G35.
Yeah, the G35 was definitely the
Oh
last.
yeah, he did buy a
yeah.
G35.
It did not tickle his fancy, is what
It did
we've
not.
learned. It's the reoccurring theme of the G35 is good car, not for Kevin though.
Yeah.
Which RX-7, if you were to get an RX-7, which one would you get?
I feel like I'd get the FC
Oof.
because at this point it's purely on like kind of whichever one you just think is the coolest, and to me the FC is kind of the coolest.
Really interesting.
Oh,
Gerard?
interesting. Yeah. FD 100%.
Yeah. When younger me really wanted an FD, but he didn't fully understand with great power comes great responsibility bit. So
Yeah.
and the
It's actually pretty
Toyotas-
interesting because if you compare the FC and the FD to the X7 and the X8, it's actually a pretty decent comparison because like the FC is quote unquote cooler, but it's also kind of like a much shittier car.
Yeah,
And then the
it's
FD is kind
the
of like
suspension's pretty
a
archaic,
better
but
car.
the FD
But
is
yeah, like
also
it's like
weird
less
though.
cool.
Is that like
Suspension?
transaxle or whatever? The like
No,
power braids.
that's just. I mean, that's not suspension. That's just the drivetrain. That's like actually like a really awesome idea. It's proprietary. So if you do swap it, there is a bunch of sort of things you have to take care of. But the suspension's amazing on the FD. And Ryan, you'd pick the FD.
I would pick the FD. The FD is just a phenomenal looking car. It's fun. I reached out to a person who used to own it. Jordan Hall had an FD after he had his SR powered Miata, and I was like, "Hey, give me a crash course because we're going to do this episode." And he was like, "Man, you could do an entire podcast back to back to back on this car, and you want to do like one episode on even if you're just looking at the FD." And I'll read his points to you, and
Yeah, sounds good.
you can argue with someone that's not here. So if we're talking about the FD, unbeatable styling, 25 years old, and even stock ones look better than most cars today. Awesome power to weight, 250 horsepower from a 1.3 liter with 1/8 of the moving parts of a normal combustion engine. Also, find me a better. No,
okay,
okay.
Go on.
Yeah. All right. Also, find me a better sounding engine. I'll wait. And until a year ago, they were affordable. So they were affordable for a while.
I mean, that's a relative term, but sure.
I'd say yeah, they were affordable, just like JZXs were affordable till a year ago, and like
okay. Yeah, they haven't gone into the stratosphere. They were like if you had money, they were attainable.
An FD is like a $60,000 car now, like a clean FD.
You could have. There was a point where we were importing them. You could have got one for $6,000 to $7,000. Like not that it would be in great, necessarily the best of shape, but you'd have your hands on an FD. And then, side note, I just saw an R32 Skyline GTR with no engine, just rolling shell for sale in Montreal for $20,000. I don't even understand the world.
I mean, that's not bad.
A rolling shell without an engine?
Yeah,
I mean, I sold my Cressida for a fairly ludicrous amount of money with no drivetrain.
All right. It's a weird comparison to like they just used to be like got to a point where they were kind of like scrappable cars if they didn't have an engine in it. All right, then Jordan. Sorry, back on topic. Jordan Hall continues with, honestly, think if Mazda was able to keep developing the rotary engine, it would have been the new normal. And I said, all good points. He said there are some.
I mean, I feel like they
did with the RX-8.
So I'll just be like, I'll be Gerard on that one.
Yeah.
Nope.
Okay. Yeah, that's fine.
Next.
100%.
All right. Next. Yeah. Like we won't get into it now.
There are some cons, but who cares? And I said, haha, heat. I think like the engine dealing with the heat of the engine, isn't that a problem with our you got to kind of that kind of.
So this is one thing I'll say. Every specific car type has their own like car guy. You know, super guys are one thing, and Tesla guys are one thing, and like classic Corolla guys are one thing, but fucking rotary guys are something else, man. You will never find another weirder group of car individuals than rotary guys. And like that list right there, where it was just like 1/8 the moving parts and the best power to weight ratio that ever existed and more horsepower per liter than anything that the fucking NASA could ever come up with. And like, it's like,
NASA.
dude, like
Oh man,
this shit didn't work. That's why it fucking is one car ever. Like, it's not the fuck, like.
Hang on. I don't want to shit on him too much because I reached out to him. So he wasn't.
Maybe he wouldn't come on the podcast. So fuck him.
He wasn't the one that I asked to come on the podcast. I asked Evan Barr to come on the podcast.
Sorry.
I asked someone else, Evan Barr, who is very much a Rotary person, to come on, but I don't think he was interested in it. Jordan Hall, I think, was interesting because he's actually not like a diehard Rotary guy. He started in Hondas, had a Miata, turboed it, put an SR in it, also had like GSRs on the side, had a motorbike for a while. He's done a lot, like an Acura Legend, the Daily That. Like, he's done a lot of things. He's had a decent amount of cars and kind of experienced a lot of those things. So I just thought, like, I guess to argue the point, Kevin's only really driven Toyotas and maybe one like Subaru and a Nissan, and then he's very mad at these Rotary.
Then had a Rotary.
But then the person that I got to like actually be like, hey, can you tell me a bit about it, is pretty diverse in their tastes. Like, doesn't hate a lot of, like, he doesn't really hate on a lot of things because he's genuinely amped on most things that are cool. So I did think it was interesting to see like that perspective of the FD. And I do think it is a beautiful car. I do agree that like there's not a ton of cars out there. Like, it still looks good to this day.
What I was going to say is, there is that sort of division between like Rotary guys that just happen to fucking have RX7s because that's the only car that comes with Rotaries, or the dudes that like put them in other things, like Australians. They basically put them in fucking anything they possibly can. But then there's also the guys that just like RX7s as a car, and it just happens to have a Rotary engine, which like they could kind of give a fuck about. You know what I mean? There's like tons and tons of LS swaps, RX7s and stuff like that. You don't think they're different people?
Yeah, I don't know.
Because I mean, that's the thing, is like, I like the cars, I appreciate the cars, but don't I'd never want to own a Rotary car.
Because I mean, it is like a weird, because then now I'm thinking about is like a Puerto Rican Rotary Starlet, like an 8-second drag car, like.
No, just think Australian, like, I don't know, that 4-rotor fucking Aristo. Like, that's a Rotary guy. That's not an RX7 guy. That's a Rotary guy. Like an RX7, like a Rotary guy is like what's his name? Mad Mike. That's a Rotary guy. Like,
that's also like fully
like,
an RX7 guy too. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. But I mean, he also has Rotaries in like fucking bunch of other things. You know what I mean? Like,
to an outsider, there would seem like there's a slight level of hypocrisy, and this is very surprising. Because usually we're just saying that applying this to Gerard, but to the guy that put a Rotary in a Corolla. So you took like kind of the frustrating like part of the RX7, that why Gerard wouldn't own one, and then put it in a Corolla. And so it does sound like you're at that point in your life, you were a Rotary guy. Maybe the Rotary guys are the reasons you stopped being a Rotary guy.
Well, yeah, that was the thing. I don't know. I thought it was a cool motor. I still think it's kind of. I still think they're kind of cool. Like, I think they sound kind of cool. Or
they do sound pretty cool. They are. Yeah. They do sound cool.
I think the 3-rotors sound pretty nuts, and like 4-rotors sound insane. 2-rotors, they can sound pretty cool. I just don't prefer them, I guess. Personally.
But we've already all of us have already kind of decided that the 1J is the best engine of all time. So like, I mean,
that was what I was gonna say, is like, it's the same way there's Toyota guys, and then there's just Jay-Z people who put a Jay-Z in anything because it's the power plant, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And for some people, like, the Rotary is the power plant,
Yeah.
And some people the LS, like, that's the thing. It's like, no matter what they're gonna build, it's like they're putting that LS in.
Just as a side, are Rotary guys the weirdest of the car group? Who is the weirdest of the car group?
I would say Rotary guys are definitely up there.
Are they the weirdest or the nerdiest?
The weirdest.
Both.
Weirdest.
What
I
about
mean,
like
nerdy's
what
nerd.
about
I
like
mean, I don't think so, man.
what about like MG dudes?
Oh, man, trust me. I come from British car backgrounds, and those guys are straight fucked. Like honestly, like yeah, I had a Cortina, and like like I'm into Cortinas, but I didn't have a Lotus Cortina. So like if you don't have a Lotus Cortina, you might as well be a fucking piece of shit under someone's shoe. So I had the wagon, and I put like this racing Pinto engine in it. Pinto not being Ford Pinto, but like the actual engine was called Pinto. So it's a 2-liter overhead cam out of a bunch of other cars, namely a Capri, came in the Pinto, whatever. But like my engine made more power, sounded fucking cooler, was more reliable than a Lotus Cortina engine. But they were just like, it's not a twin cam Lotus engine. Like, you're like fucking whatever. So yeah, it's like just
Well, that's because
the worst
you're not
people to deal with was these.
I mean,
you're not numbers
again,
matching, you know?
also, so you're
Yeah.
saying that a group of people called you a peasant, and then that fueled you for the rest of your life to never be a peasant again.
Something like that. And they were just so square, man. Like just the weirdest dude.
Before we go back to RX-7, this is gonna maybe be controversial, and I don't know if I fully think it, but I do agree. I do feel, and maybe this will tie into it, that there are certain cars that only certain types of people that can drive. Like it takes a certain type of personality type to be fully into that car, fully vested. And it's like
100%.
Like Corollas. Kevin is maybe the only Corolla driver I've ever met that's actually like escaped Corollaism.
Gerard had a Corolla.
Yeah, I guess.
Probably
Yeah,
had
that's true.
more than one Corolla.
Yeah. So you two are the only ones. Like I always find that like Corolla owners are like a very special breed. Dave Vickers is gonna message me later and like give me shit. But yeah,
No, there's no way he
stray far,
if he
man.
tries to deny it.
So my experience, and I do believe that Gerard's right. I think that there is people that are into the Rotaries and there's people that are into the RX-7. And the people that I know that are
crossover for sure.
There is. Well, there has to be. It's a Venn diagram.
Yeah.
You know. Totally. And then like the guys putting like LSs in them, I don't get down with that. I think it's pretty whack. Someone can be mad about it, but like if you're gonna have an FD, if you're gonna have an RX-7, have an RX-7. Embrace everything that comes with it, all the headaches, and learn your lessons. Take your licks.
So do you feel that way about every car? Every car should just have the motor and transmission that it came with?
No, I don't.
Yeah, like, that's a silly way to think. But like, do you think because this car is such like maybe a unicorn because it has this stupid engine that like if you want to have that car, you should have that stupid engine?
Yes, I think so. I think
I'll tell you what.
That is a good way. It's like
I'll tell you what. You know why? That the FD is viewed as that type of car where like they don't give a shit about the engine, because it's the only car that you can buy that has that weight distribution, that construction, and that suspension design. No other car. I mean, the S2000, I guess, is kind of close, but it's not the same type of car. It's it's like a roadster. It's smaller, but the RX-7 like legit has like racing suspension. It's all aluminum, double wishbone. Super light. Like, yeah, the greenhouse is small. The car can be extremely light. It's well balanced. So like, toss the unreliable Rotary, put a real, whatever you want to put in there that gives you X amount of horsepower, that keeps the balance and the potential of that chassis. Then yeah, those are the people that are into those cars for that reason.
I get that. Also, to be fair, I think that's when Jordan sent me that list of things. I think that he was kind of alluding to all of those points. Mine is taking the engine out that you just said, like the weight distribution and all that stuff. I think that's why. But we were just busy going wrong. Yeah.
So Kevin, so let's get to why Kevin wants the FC.
Kevin, why the FC?
It's just all about the looks. I don't know. Same reason I like the X7 over the X8. It's just like more angular and square, and I don't know. I like cars of that generation, I guess. That's,
What's your favorite S chassis?
S chassis?
Yeah.
Kevin's like, what's that?
Yeah, what is that? Honestly, I'd have to like throw a wrench in that, because I think I'd go with the S15.
That's interesting.
That's not what I thought you were gonna say. I thought you would have to do. I think what we're learning is that we are all full of contradictions in all of our viewpoints on things.
Yeah.
Like there's rules that we adhere to, and then we make exceptions to those rules when we see.
But I mean,
fit.
it's all hypothetical. You know,
Yeah.
I've never once owned an S chassis, so
No, I get it. But when you
and
describe,
at this point in history, yeah, it's like there's probably not a lot of things you can do to an S13. You know?
yeah,
Oh, there's always things for sure.
it's got to be imaginative, I suppose.
Yeah.
Think outside the box.
Yeah, none of us did the FB. You had an FB, Gerard, right?
I had an FB out.
I don't like those.
Yeah,
at
I mean
all.
that was the thing, is that was sort of my car before I had the AE. It was like that type of car. Like I was into these like small sort of like, actually, yeah, that was a coupe as well. So I was into these like small, and I mean, honestly, it came up and I bought it on a whim. It came up. It was like at this weird fucking King George dealership, and it had a brand new, or like a replacement, engine that had been fitted from Mazda, which is really, really weird. And it was an 85 GSL SE, and which was like obviously, in my opinion, the most desirable of the first gen. And it was cheap, and I traded this this Hyundai Pony that had been given to me. So yeah, it made total sense at the time, and it was a great car for what it was. But then I got an E86, which, if you put the two cars together, I guess in Kevin's sort of like, what he was going for, like the AE was an amazing chassis, super cool looking car. It was really fun, but the engine was just kind of bullshit. Like it made a little bit of power, but then the FB, for example, like, yeah, the chassis was kind of bullshit. But then the engine was, torquey, like revvy, like exciting, it was fast. You could definitely drift it. Like, I mean, except for the fact that the chassis was kind of shit. And steering, it was like a recirculating ball, I swear. It wasn't even a rack and pinion. So yeah, I mean, that was that. Yeah, and I mean, I watched that one video. Like I said, I was watching a lot of option video, and then that one came out, and I was just like, "Fuck, that's like a really cool car." It was like, flared, and it just looked really wild and kind of like unique. And I could afford it, and it was there, and like, yeah, I did like 3 mods, and the thing was fast and like looked pretty cool. So,
what is the path that someone takes to end up being an RX7 person? This is a hypothetical, or a Rotary person, like.
They want to be different.
Well, then that would be you, man.
Yeah, I mean, I had a fucking RX7,
yeah,
and I was literally gonna buy an FC. I was literally going to buy the FC, and it stopped to look at an X7 Cressida, and then just bought the Cressida. Yeah, I was literally going to pick up an FC that I'd already like basically put a deposit on, and like all this shit.
I wonder what life would have been like. SerialNine would have been
it.
a Serial 7, I guess. He would have just been like all Rotary all the time.
There's always weird things like that. I remember I went to look at like a 240SX one time, and Matt Peterson came with me to look, I was with him, and he was looking at a Corolla, and then we ended up with the opposite cars. And like, I wonder what would happen if like Matt had the Corolla and I had the S13.
Matt would be sitting here now. And
yeah,
exactly.
exactly.
All the sweet Gerard burns we could handle. I originally really wanted a Honda Civic, and I just couldn't. None of the stars aligned on that, and yeah, so I ended up with a Mazda, which I think probably just gave me room to like jump around into the other things. I wonder if I would have had a Honda if I would have just stayed a Honda person, because it seems like not all, but a lot of Honda people like kind of stick it out with Hondas.
I don't know, man.
I feel like there's not a lot of reasons to jump ship from Honda, maybe, unless you want to drift.
Yeah, go on. Yeah, I kind of disagree, man. I feel like a lot of people came from Hondas. Like if we did a poll of like how many people came from Hondas, I guarantee you it'd be like a fucking massive amount of like drift dudes and like dudes that have like, Supras and like all sorts of shit.
I feel like that was the only car that was kids were modifying, though. You know what I mean? Like,
I think it'd be a generational thing.
Exactly.
Maybe. I mean,
because I think, Gerard, your generation, not that it's like a terrible gap, but like the era that you came up in, it to like Kevin's point was like that was the lion's share of the market was Hondas. People started branching out. I know a lot of Honda people like coming up that stayed Honda, and this is aside, I've noticed when I moved to Vancouver, there wasn't a lot of like overlap in the scene. It was kind of like, if you're into what we're into, you're in your own group, and then the Honda guys are in their own group, and like the RX7 dudes are in their own, like there's space for everyone. And the scene that I came up in, wasn't big enough for people to segregate. So like I had to hang out with like a lot of Honda guys, and I had to hang out with
That
like
was
a
the
lot of
Cavalier
RX-7.
guys, right?
No, they weren't around. They weren't allowed in that. It was
Yeah.
like you had to have an import.
There was some amount of segregation.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think they wanted to hang around with like the right-hand drive guys. So when I came here, I was always like, oh man, like there's tons of segregation between all these like groups and stuff, and that was an interesting way to look at it. But you are probably right, Gerard. There's an era where a lot of people came from Hondas and like jumped ship, but like yourself, and then went to Mazda, and then landed on Toyota.
I would think if I was like
yeah
4 years younger, 3 years younger, I definitely would have had my first car as a Honda, because I don't think maybe or sorry, my the first car I really wanted to have and modify, because I don't think I would have been exposed to drifting yet, and that automatically shifted my thing, because like
Do you mean
I
younger
was
or older? If you were 4 years older,
sorry,
like if
Yeah.
you were coming up on
or
if you were
4 years
30
earlier.
yeah, if you were 39 right now, your
Yeah.
first car would have been.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I feel like, if I was a tiny bit older, my first car would have been a Honda, because I don't think I would have been exposed to drifting at the time I was.
I was the same. Like I was right on the cusp. It was all Honda, and then it just so happened that there was like I found a Mazda MX-3 that I thought would be a fun alternative, which wasn't. Yeah. So and then it just like aligned, because I didn't love that car. There was nothing holding me to that brand. It was easier to jump over to like Nissan, and then that put me into like the drifting scene.
For me, Hondas were sort of in the middle. Like my first car was a Volvo, and then it was like a Cortina, which was a British Ford, and then the other Fords, and then I bought a Civic after having all those cars, and then while building the Civic, I had the A86, I had the FB, and honestly, what I was doing back then was trying to buy and sell cars to get a Mark III Supra, which was funny because I was like, oh, that's like the car. That's like the culmination of all these cars. Like it's like, turbo and like sick. And then I saw that Tezuka video and I was like, that's a Toyota and it's a sedan and like somehow has this ridiculous engine. And I was like, I just like never looked back for Mark III Supras. So luckily I never had one.
Yeah, no doubt.
You know what I mean?
What would have that
That would have been like
Gerard been like?
That would whole been a podcast in itself on like mistakes you've made.
Oh man. Hypothetical mistakes you've made. So
but I did build one. I mean, I built a Mark III Supra with a good friend of mine.
We've strayed a bit from RX7 day, which is fine. I don't hate where we've gone. Here's a question then, because I feel like it's going to come up sooner than later, and it's easier to ask it now. In your perspective, you two, is July 7th, should it be RX7 day or should it just be X7 day? Should it be the Toyota X7 appreciation day?
Yeah, it'd be sick. I mean, for sure. That's what we do.
I mean, when I had an X7, I would always post up. Yeah, exactly. I have, I'm not in that culture, so I don't post up RX7s on that day, but I have posted my X7 on that day in the past.
All right. So now an X7 versus an RX7. Why an X7 over an RX7? Either. I don't know. I don't have an answer. I honestly could not tell you.
Because it's a Toyota and it has 4 power windows and 4 doors and 4 seat belts and is comfortable in the back and has power heated mirrors and a power sunroof. And then you can put a Jay-Z in it and it hauls fucking ass. And that's kind of sicker than the FC where it's super tiny and the controls and all the instrumentation looks like it's from someone's vision of what the 70s would look like. How is everything orange? How is every single thing orange? It's so bad. But yeah, I mean,
and not only that,
fuck FC. I take the FD. I'm gonna take the FD.
We got it.
I'm imagining myself in the FC, and I'm so angry.
Yeah.
The FD,
the interior's busted.
I think FCs are cool at a time.
Externally, 100% externally.
Yeah. I think FDs
nothing
are
cooler.
An objectively beautiful car.
When you get to my my explanation as to why I like the FD, I can explain how I disagree that it looks better than a lot of normal cars.
Okay, go on. I want to hear this because Go.
Are we
Yeah,
done with
of course.
the FD? We're
No,
done
you can
with the
tell me
Fs?
why. Should X7 be? Should it be X7 day, Gerard, or is it? Or should RX7
Yeah, X7s are
guys?
sick. It's okay. Well, I mean, that's the thing. I literally was going to buy an FC, had it already like lined up. It was a fucking beautiful car. I mean, honestly, today it'd probably be worth a fuck ton of money. I had this JDM, Series 5 engine or whatever with like an XED clutch and all this stuff that we got from the importers back then. But then I drove up and I rolled up in this X7, and honestly, I had no prior experience really with X7s, except that like I always, when I drove to work, I saw this one and I'm like, man, that thing like looks pretty cool. It kind of looks low, and it like, I don't know, man, just like bigger things when they're dumped just look more gangster. It's like the sedan. It's kind of like weird and boxy and kind of sick looking, and then like when it's lowered, you're just like, yo, that thing looks crazy. Like, like you lower a coupe, it's like a coupe's supposed to be low. You know what I mean? The coupe's fucking low to start with. Like it's not a whole lot of difference. It's a sports car. Of course it's fucking fast. Of course it's light. Of course it's balanced and all this shit. But then you like get in this sedan and you're like, yo, this is actually pretty fast. It's actually pretty balanced. It's surprisingly like comfortable. And then it's like, it's just kind of sick. It looks sick because it's big and you lower it and it's like big and low and it's just more to look at. It has a big ass. It's got 4 doors. It's like a huge trunk and a long hood and like these square headlights. It's fucking sick. And then you get inside the thing and you're like, yo, like power seats, like power one-touch sunroof. Like it has all this cool shit, man. It's like when you're a kid and you're out in the bushes and you find one of those like wrecked cars and it's like a 1950, like big ass American car, and it has all those switches and shit for like the windows. And you're just like, what is all this stuff? It's so cool. It's like you're in a fucking airplane or something. And then the X7, like, I don't know, it just kind of reminds me of that. It has all this, just tons of shit that's cool. And the FC has like a radio, like fuck off.
I will tell you my story really quickly here, because
Sure.
I had the Rotary Corolla and I also had a stock X7 Cresta at the same time. Or not stock, I like cut the springs or whatever, and it had wheels, but nothing major done. And they were like nearly comparable drift cars, like this purpose-built drift car, Rotary Corolla, and this X7 Cressida. And I remember I traded
with like a stock LSD.
Yeah, I traded a hood for this car, and I'm like, here I am. I traded a hood for this car, and there's this other car that I've been piecing together for this long, and that's when I was just like, man, like this is it. I got to build this. Like,
all right, this is what I think is very funny. So we talked about how there's all these different types of car guys and what they are. I think it would be great to have like a reaction.
Oh, fully. Yeah.
To people listening to us talk about it, because they're like, these dudes all really like Japanese Toyota sedans, and they're talking about like, they're trying to compare it to an RX7, and like they're just talking about how it has power windows and back seats and a bunch of switches, and it's
it
like,
makes it so much better.
But I wonder, like, because the thing is, it's really hard.
A digital fucking dash, dude. A digital dash.
Exactly.
Shit is hard, hell, dude.
Like nothing on it doesn't work 40 years later.
Yeah, it's just it's a funny comparison. It'd be interesting to be like, I wonder what they think of people like you, right? Like they're like, and then there's just these dudes that like love sedans. Like that's fucking so weird. And then because I imagine that one of the counter arguments you'd hear from an RX7 guy is, Gerard, you're like, it's like an airplane. Yeah, but if it's like an airplane, isn't an FD kind of like a fighter jet when you sit in it? Like a little bit.
Hey,
like
man, you still haven't heard how I feel about FDs. So
all right, okay, all right. Tell me how you feel about FDs.
But one thing I want to add about X7s is like it's
we're really campaigning. Fuck RX7s. It's X7.
It's a really it's a really, really nice place to be as an everyday car. Like in mine, I had these seats. They were like these crazy like Recaro like Mitsubishi seats or whatever. So I sat low in this big sedan, and like, it's not the nicest weather here. It rains a lot and shit. And it's like, I just want to hop in my car, put on my Beats and like cruise and like, drift around here and there. And man, like the X7, it's like a really, really, really nice fucking place to be. It's comfortable and, all that shit. And like, I've been in FCs like in the rain, and it's like, honestly, it kind of fucking sucks. Like it's so cramped and there's no place to put your shit. And like, yeah. Anyways,
I've already said this. I stopped being a Nissan guy because of Toyotas when I was like, oh, this is just so much better. Like
Yeah.
everything about this feels better than like an S chassis. And it does the same thing. You know,
Yeah.
like, oh, wait, like I had a turbo rear wheel drive. Well, now I have a turbo rear wheel drive, but it's not even like mine was a 4-cylinder and now I have a 6-cylinder, you know, like, and it's all these things, but more. And it, you know, it is a bigger package and therefore it can hold more things. But
exactly.
but it is very funny. What do you feel about the FD then? I want to hear this. I'm very interested.
Okay, so why I would have an FD if I had an RX7 is because like it's an amazing car, man. Like it's definitely like a technological marvel. Like that thing is basically a race car that you can drive. Like never in my life have I hopped in a car and been able to drive so unbelievably fucking fast and like at the limit, because the limit is like, you know where the limit is. It's blatantly right there, but like you could just dance on that limit like completely in a stock fucking car. Like it's just so balanced. And I mean the one we built was like initially had like a stock-ish engine, and then we had one that had basically like a big single turbo or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
I think it made like maybe 400 horsepower or something. It had like nice suspension, some grippy tires, whatever. It was still stand C, but like this is in like 2000 or something, so it wasn't super low and super crazy, but it was it was something. But yeah, man, like the balance, it's a very comfortable interior. Like I mean, I do think like leather seats in those type of cars is kind of fucking weird. It's like a sports car, but it has leather seats. I think that's fucked. But like, yeah, steering wheel's nice, dashboard's nice. Like you sit in the car, it's definitely like cockpit. It's like, that the center console literally is like wrapped around you, and you're just in there to do one thing, and that's fucking shred. This, like it's a pretty comfortable car. Definitely way more comfortable than an FC. But yeah, like it's very driver focused. Like you drive that car and you get a ton of enjoyment out of it.
That sounds great. And it sounds like they deserve, just for the FD alone, they deserve July 7th as their day.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's a great car. As far as looks, I think it looks pretty cool when modified. I don't think, like, for me, it's from that weird era where like EGs and FDs and like all the cars they look like they rolled too close to like a radioactive plant and kind of melted a little bit. Like styling's very round and very like swoopy. Like it can look good for sure, but I don't think it looks that great stock.
Interesting. I mean, like, I don't think, here's the thing. I don't know if a ton of cars look great stock is I guess how I feel about that. And I don't know, maybe
like,
X7 honestly is like one of the best looking stock cars. Go on. I'm just fucking with you.
Yeah, I was gonna say I don't think that's true.
When I think of stock cars, I just think of how ugly the Aristo is stock.
Yeah. I mean, it's honestly not a whole lot better after it's modified.
Get out of here! How dare you?
It goes from like a 5 to a 7, like an 8 max. You know what I mean? Like,
I guess this is where our roads split, and I love how they look modified, and I think there's so many different variations of those cars, and look, there's a lot as with any car. There's some pretty awful versions of like GSs and Aristos out there, but like when it's done well, I don't know. It hits home, I guess. It's hitting home runs.
I did see one the other day, and I thought like it was pretty sick. I was like, it was low in silver and had the wing, and I was like, oh, well, that's pretty nice car. And I was like, oh, it's an Aristo.
When I drive by someone in an Aristo and I'm in my like 4Runner, I'm always like jealous that I'm not in my Aristo.
In your Aristo?
Yeah, I'm like,
no, I totally get that.
It's like, well, I have one of those too. You could see we have things in common. I'm more than this 4Runner with a rusty rear bumper. Kevin, did you switch? You would take the FD. You're over the FC. You talked yourself out of it.
No, because that's the thing. Is like, I don't know. Is that my only car? Like, like, is it just a car I get to have because I want to have that car?
I'm just asking, like, we line up two cars and I'm going to throw you the keys to one. You're not going to sell it. This is the one time I'm not going to make you pay money for the car. You can have an FC or an FD. You can do whatever the fuck you want to it after, but you're not like selling it.
I think I take the FC. Yeah, sorry.
Oh, you just went back.
Yeah, no, I guess yeah,
All
it
right.
just looks so they just look so cool from the outside that like yeah, I would love looking at that car and
All
being like,
right.
yo,
Okay.
that shit is my shit.
Interesting. I definitely think they have a look about them that's pretty cool. But I think ultimately, in my opinion, yeah, the FD, like when it's done, even like done, those fenders, man, they just go
Yeah.
on, and they're so sexy. Like that's a very sexy car.
Yeah, like to me, and I know this doesn't resonate with you guys as much as it does probably for me, is like in regular life, an FD just exudes like a certain presence, and it doesn't require an explanation. If someone sees it, they're usually like, wow, that's a really nice sports car. If
Yeah.
someone didn't give a shit about cars, and I'm sure this has happened where someone's like, whoa, is that a Porsche? And it's like, no, you dummy, it's a fucking RX-7 FD. But like I think when people see it, it just exudes like a thing that doesn't require an explanation. I think an FC, especially today, would require an explanation. That's not a reason to choose a car, but like I think just it's that objective sense of like objectively to me the FD is like it is a beautiful thing.
And then also like the FD was a revolutionary, like world beating car, whereas the FC was basically like Mazda's answer to the 944. And they're like, yo, we just made this car that's like way better than the Porsche, but hey, notice us. And then everyone's like, yo, this Porsche is sick. And then everyone's like, hey, you heard about this RX-7 thing? Like,
so where did they go wrong on the RX-8? Why did that fail?
it's a fucking pilot.
Is there anyone that really likes the RX-8?
Ilya.
He likes them.
And Earl.
Really?
Are they? They're not turbocharged, are they? Yeah, no.
Yeah,
they
are.
are.
Yeah, they are. Yeah, the Renesis.
It's the Renesis. Oh
Yeah.
my god!
So you want to hear something?
So is that
funny?
like a revolutionary Genesis?
Dude, I swear when that car came out, they downgraded the power claim 7 times. They're like, yeah, it makes 330, and then like, no, it makes 315, and then they're like, it makes 300, and they're like, well, actually, it's like 280, and then like the car came out, and people were dynoing it. I swear at like 260 or something. They're like, oh yeah, okay, sorry.
Well,
Yeah.
Kevin, it had a third door on it, so
It has 4 doors actually.
4 doors. Oh, geez.
That's
Yeah,
right.
it's 4. It's a sedan, bro.
It is a sedan, yeah.
I confused it with the Saturn that had 3 doors.
Yeah, I mean, I've definitely worked on a few RX-8s. Like I remember when they kind of first came out, and Force Fed was like modifying a shit ton of them. I'd roll the fenders on like every single one. So I've done at least 4, 5, 6 RX-8s, and like moved them around, driven them here and there. But yeah, I mean, I don't know much about them as far as suspension goes, but I assume it's easily as good or better than the FD, and it's a pretty kind of cool looking car.
Do RX-8 owners take a day on the calendar to appreciate their car?
No one cares.
No one cares.
If they do, no one has noticed.
Just so, what are other car chassis that get days? So, like our chassis
86
take.
day. bud.
86.
Yeah, that's a big
August
one.
6th.
Yeah, that's a big one.
Yeah.
Might be going to
X8.
Calgary for that one.
We do X8 days.
So
Yeah.
what's the what is so August
There's
8th?
February the 2nd, and then February the 4th, which is R32 and R34 day. Or no, I guess
Yeah.
that's March.
Yeah, it's March. Yeah.
Yeah. See, I'm
gonna have 147 day,
Yo,
161 day.
No,
What would be one?
there's
look-
326 power day.
Oh, is there? SerialNine's got a day.
Yeah, September 9th.
I always think that should just be the day for like the sedan guy, like the 161 can't have a day. So it should just be that day, like the 147 can't have a day. Like they should just all
UCF 20 can't have a day.
yeah.
I mean, you can have a day every month.
Well, yeah, exactly. So I always think that people
Wouldn't
should just rally
161 be
around.
January 16th?
No.
Oh, 61. Yeah, man. See, I'm
Yeah,
all over
wouldn't
the
it be
place.
January 61st?
61st? Yeah.
So I think that would put it somewhere in March.
I'm sure there's somewhere where they write the fucking day and then the month. There you go.
I'm sure there is as well, but that's not as much fun, is it? But yeah, so what else do you think about RX-7s? Anything?
Oh, me?
I don't know.
Anybody? What do you think about RX-7s, Ryan?
I think because I like kind of came up around guys that had like a real understanding of them, and like they came up in the same environment where they had to appreciate other things around them as well. I really appreciate RX-7s. I don't think I could be an RX7 owner, just because like I think, like I said, there's too much responsibility. It's when you hear people talk about like the maintenance of the car, and it's kind of like, no, they're actually really reliable as long as you do 1, 2, 3 and X, Y, and Z, and you take care of this, this, and this on top of that, and then what you need to do is redirect. And it's like, okay, well, I feel like people maybe that like it really have an interest in like maybe going into that, have an interest in like the engineering behind it and like problem solving. And then I feel like liking a Toyota sometimes isn't necessarily about problem solving. It's just like,
No.
like, you know, it's like
except for the
Toyota.
chassis.
Yeah.
It's the exact same thing. It's like you buy an FD and like you have to do one mod to the chassis, which is put coilovers on it. And then you buy a Toyota and you have to do 15,000 mods on the chassis to make it decent. But yeah, you'd have to do nothing to the drivetrain besides put a like twin plate clutch in it or something. But then you buy an FD and you have to do like, 5, 10 things to the motor if it survives, or to make it survive. And then if it doesn't, it's like the sky's the fucking limit.
Yeah.
So one thing I will say is the Rotary came up a while ago. You know, it wasn't a new invention. It didn't hit in the 21st century. And I feel like import guys back then were getting beat on, you know? People were always making fun of them. I feel like import guys were getting bullied and they had to like stand up for themselves a bit. And I feel like Rotary guys are the epitome of that. Like they even got like made fun of by all of the other import guys. So Rotary guys, if they're into Rotaries, have like fully just doubled down and like built this hard shell of just like, no, I can only like the Rotary and everybody else hates me and like the Rotary is the best, you know? I kind of feel like that's happened as well.
So
And that's
those
why
aren't the people that I know, but I could see what you're saying. That's for sure.
Yeah.
Probably has to be a thing.
I mean, yeah, we're pretty close with a shop that basically like anything to do with rotaries was similar to like Australia. It's like every rotary has to have 500 horsepower for 5 minutes. It's like you can't just leave the fucking thing alone. You can't do like a 300 horsepower build. It has to be like everything under the sun to make this car sick. $10,000, $15,000, $20,000 just to blow up fucking 6 months later at the very, very, very latest. And then do it all again. It's like dudes that I know like were into rotaries were like literally spending every cent they owned on the fucking engine all the time, repeatedly. It's like, dude, like get out of it. Like, but I mean, yeah, I mean, like it said, like Ilias has a stock-ish, engine or whatever, has had it for a long time, drifted on it, and like is a proponent to the reliability.
The only dudes I know with RX8s like are FC dudes
that have it as like a daily,
or yeah, like I don't know, like Earl had his FC and now he has an FD, and now he's drifting his RX8, which is sort of his daily all the time. So it's like there's obviously that progression, and it's ingrained.
I think you're right.
Ilya had the FC, has the FD, now has the RX8. There have been, he had a J690 and an X8 in there as well, but it's definitely
he's the opposite of you guys.
And it's definitely in there with him,
Yeah, he's the opposite.
I don't know if he had the 90. Sorry, maybe I was thinking the Zafiro.
Yeah, he had a 90.
Oh,
yeah, he had the 90.
Gerard said like they spend all this money just to blow it up and then do it all over again. What is the most masochistic group of car guys? Like think about that. Like actually mull it over, and who just loves to be sad about their car, like loves to like, oh, I'm gonna do all this stuff and it's gonna blow up and then I'm gonna do it all over again.
I mean, I would probably say those guys, man.
Yeah, really?
No,
it's because they're always just chasing. I mean, it could be the fault of this local shop that kind of just pushes them towards that, but it's like they're always just chasing this number, and then they do all this stuff. It's like, oh, it's only going to be good when I get the second set of injectors. It's only going to be good after I get the third pump. It's only going to be good after I, get the billet fucking whatever those things are called, housings and shit. Or no, you got to get the carbon apex seals or this apex seal, and it's like this manifold and that manifold and the GT. It's like fucking drive the car, man. Like just drive the fucking car. Just stop building the damn motor. Stop blowing up the motor on the dyno. Stop chasing 600, 700, 800 horsepower. Like just build something that works and drive the car.
So
And at that point, honestly, a lot of those RX-7 guys that I know, they don't ever drive their cars. They just like they're basically Supra guys, but like,
But at least
I
the
have an
Supra-
800
the Supra
horsepower.
you could drive. You
Yeah,
drive it all the time.
Yeah,
but I think Gerard said in past episodes, the guys that get really into it put their power band at a really dumb spot with the size of turbo
Yeah.
that they choose. So
Yeah.
it's like,
but I
it's
mean,
not like
and,
effective to drive. It's not fun to drive all the time.
but the beauty of the 2JZ is now that they've done enough like R&D on it, like you have 1,000 horsepower drift cars. So like you have to have a power band with drifting. So now you have 1,000 horsepower usable power band 2JZ. Like some of them are 3.4, some of them are still 3 liters. Like how do you have a 5 to 8,000, 5 to 9,000 or 10,000 RPM power band with 1,000 horsepower and a 2JZ? Like that's pretty fucking usable in my world. I mean, probably not the most on a street car, but if you really drove the car, like it could, 5,000 RPM. Some engines don't make any power.
We've unsurprisingly brought this back to JZ Motors. We're talking about Rotaries. We're like, but the JZ will do it. They'll do it all day.
What I will say though is like at that level, it's not so much a usable power band. It's still a pretty specific power band, and they do run like turbo rotaries against the 2JZ at in that thing. It's like they're still always at the top kind of,
Yeah.
But I mean, how many relatively successful 2JZ racing engines are there in like many forms of motorsport versus successful rotaries?
What about drag racing?
I mean, drag racing.
There's an entire like piston versus rotary. Event and competition.
Yeah, I'll give them that, man. That's what they're made for. Last fucking 10 seconds. You know what I mean? Make 800 horse for 10 seconds. It's perfect.
Yeah, and then you take it apart and examine everything and put it back together and do it again.
Yeah, you don't think those guys build their motors like repeatedly? Like,
no, fully. I fully.
Yeah,
but I mean, like
they take them apart at every event.
Yeah,
but like drift car guys have to like do that, and the big higher up stuff. I think.
I mean, I would say totally. Less. Like, I would say less.
I think I swear Osbo, when he was running that Corolla, that was the level of it too. It was like a 900 horsepower.
The TC he drove or whatever.
Yeah,
that wasn't that a 3.4 liter like a Tacoma engine?
No, man, I swear that was like the Scion motor that the car came with.
Yeah, Papadakis.
Oh, that one, yeah.
They had to pull it all the
motors
time.
like every event. Yeah,
Faust had the good engine, the one that you were talking about, and then when he left, he took it with him from the program, and so then they had to build that one, and then
was it called a 2RZ or something? 2RZ, 3RZ, I don't know.
Sure. And then Papadakis Racing had to do all that shit to it. I wanted to go back to what you said. It was like maybe it's a shop pushing all these RX-7 owners to make horsepower. I think it's the community. I think it's probably the same thing that happens with the 2J community or the car community. And the same reason that Subaru guys put rally armor on their cars. It's like you get into a group of people all talking the same dialect and the same interesting thing. And it's like all of these cars are like super stellar when you're at 600 or 700 horsepower or 500 horsepower, and so it becomes a giant echo chamber of people just telling you like, well, I've been doing this for 20 years and I've rebuilt the engine 6 times, but the most fun I've ever had in the car is when it's at 500 horsepower, and then that kind of sets the tone for what you're going to do with your car.
I mean, I can't even imagine how fast a 700 horsepower AFD would be, or even a 500 horsepower FD would be amazing.
The culture is probably pushing people to build that. I don't know. You are the company you keep and where you go to get your information and stuff.
I don't particularly like rotary engines, that's for sure.
Why not? Just because of what you already said.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot. I mean, granted, the
I think we should preface this. It's like, guys that love Toyotas probably aren't going to love rotary engines.
I think I have like a certain sort of respect and appreciation and knowledge for a lot of engines, and I have had experience with rotaries. Like I've built a few, I've driven a bunch, and that sort of thing. I mean, the FD itself suffered from a lot of the problems that all of those type of engines, when that was the whole race with the twin turbo and the sequential and the, best power and then most power and most usable, and they have these valves and they have these fucking giant cast iron manifolds and shit, and the stuff would melt and the stuff would crack, and if you could manage that, I'm sure like a stock FD when it was new and you maintained it would probably be a phenomenal car. You know what I mean? The power band is probably great. The actual, you know, amount of power is probably good. But yeah, they had problems with like all the valves that hold, you know, the second turbo and all that stuff opening. They would melt. Yeah, so then, you know, it would just way easier to take that off and put on like a decent single turbo or whatever. And then you kind of open like a can of worms. Like they're incredibly fucking non-fuel efficient. Like they use the most amount of fuel ever. So like you have to run, you know, those injectors, double the injectors, whatever. I mean, the power band's pretty cool. The fact that they rev pretty high is kind of cool. I don't particularly like the sound. It's definitely a unique sound that like, you know, you can get down with if you have like the right exhaust. I think that it would appeal to me, but I feel like a lot of people recognize it, and it's a very like what's the word, like
it doesn't sound like anything else, that's for
yeah sure. It has like a very to me it almost sounds electric, like it has like a weird like electric kind of sound to it, like, you know,
it's pretty like iconic
because it never like stops almost, you know. It's not like a beat like a motor is. It's almost never ending, you know.
Yeah, I do find that it's not very musical until you get to like the 3 and 4 rotors. And maybe it's just because those engines are so specialized that they rev so high that like there is a vast difference from like 3,000 RPM to 10,000 RPM.
Yeah,
you know,
like
when they rev out
at that level is sound nuts.
Yeah, they rev like any engine combination that Mad Mike has sounds fucking insane. So whatever he's doing, he you know, but I mean, I would probably argue that any one of the engines in his car probably costs upwards of $30,000 to $50,000. So there's got to be something there, right? But yeah, I mean, like I had the NA one, the 13B. That was like pretty cool. I never ever had an issue with it. And then like I said, we built that single turbo one. My good buddy Paula from AES had a street ported NA for a long time. That was okay, but then he had a stock turbo 2 with a few bolt-ons, and that thing was amazing. That thing was like just like good power, good sound, good everything, and then it got stolen. So yeah, that was the end of that one. Oh, another thing, when I was in college, I was the only one allowed to drive this Turbo 2 to get it air carried because I was in college and I was the only one who had experience, I don't know, driving cool cars or something, or responsible enough or whatever. So I had the job of
cool cars.
Air carrying an FC turbo, like a 10th anniversary, all white, you know, the white with the white wheels and all. It was such a cool car, man. And like the red stripe and stuff. Yeah, man. Like I drove that thing and I drifted that thing around in the rain. And I was like, man, this thing's like literally a go-kart. Like it's sick.
What did you go to college for?
Automotive like technician or something.
Oh, I didn't know that. Good. That's never come up in any of our stories.
No, but yeah, no, that I mean, yeah, those I guess those technically I've had experience with all except for RX8s.
Yeah, I remember like when I had my Corolla, like one of my friend group, he had the Turbo 2 FC red, and it had coils. It was sick, but like there was some wastegate issue, which basically the wastegate would never open, or it like I don't know, like wouldn't open till like 28 pounds, or like basically as the RPM would go up, the boost would just continuously also go up. So he was super afraid. Then he would always just like drive it with the tiniest amount of RPM because he was. I
was thinking you were gonna say he was just thinking to shred it.
No, like the complete opposite. Like he spent all the money on the car, had absolutely no, and because it used so much gas. It had that kill switch that kills the fuel pump, so you could like start the car without the fuel pump, and then turn the fuel pump on because the cars would always just flood.
Yeah, I remember that was another thing too. Paulo's car, like, would always have to do this like spark plug dance fucking thing to fucking start the car, and like, I was like, what is this, man? I don't want any of this.
I want to go back to this because it's been you guys think that RX7 guys are the most masochistic of all the car groups, and I don't think that's true. I think DSM guys are the most.
I mean, that's such a small group these days, though. I don't think it.
In the day, though,
I don't even know a DSM guy.
I did, and it was always, oh, just rebuilding it. Oh, just rebuilding it. Oh, it's gonna have so much power.
Well, what
And
about
just
SR
rebuild-
guys? I mean, there's
Yeah,
that
I don't even hang out
eventually.
with those guys.
SR. I don't know. An SR compared to a DSM was like way more reliable.
I mean, SRs are, in my world, I would say relatively reliable for sure.
Yeah, like my SR was pretty good. The guy who bought it, the second person after I had it, tried very hard to blow mine up and couldn't. Like I get that there's issues with every engine, but yeah.
Yeah, like my JZ burns a shit ton of oil. Piece of junk.
There you go.
My
Yeah.
Jay-Z leaks a shit ton of oil.
Yeah, that's one thing they do is leak and burn oil, basically like a Honda.
It's the price you pay. The
Yeah,
price you pay.
I'd still rather have that than a Rotary or a fucking 4G63.
Yeah.
Oh man. Okay. Well, I don't know. Is there anything else we can say about RX7s?
I think there is.
Yeah.
There is. And here's what I will say. And what I'm going to say is this. And it starts here. And what it's going to be is that.
Good.
Okay, but so the RX7s they're kind of cool because they're multifaceted. Like Stan Stout and FD and FC like look fucking sick. Like a Stan FD is like something else. You know what I mean? But also,
okay.
Go on, yeah.
Yes,
Sorry.
Kevin.
I was just gonna say that I almost feel that the BNFD was like the first thing that like I was just like, holy shit, like I need my car to be like that, to be on the ground, like rim lift to fender. Like I feel like that was one of the first cars I saw that was just mind-boggling.
Yeah, I remember there was that one option episode of the yellow FD with the BN wide body, and it had like the most elaborate fuel system in the trunk, and like I swear it was like a polished or chrome roll cage, and the car was so fucking outrageous, and I was like, man, like that is something else. Like that car is phenomenal looking. Like truly epitomizes like the coupe, the sports coupe, you know what I mean? Like, so a Stance RX-7 looks amazing, but yet it is a great race car and it is also a great drift car. So like it is like a fully multifaceted car. Like it can sort of do everything. I mean, maybe not the best daily / like family car, but
No, I don't think so.
If you have a real small family, sure. But yeah, I mean, that's the thing is it's like I bet you if you were to buy a stock RX-7 FD and like do coilovers and sticky tires, that was probably like an amazingly competent racing car. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I would imagine it probably still is. Even if you did it, like
yeah. It's like you buy that and like what else were you gonna buy at that time? At 300 ZX? Like I guess like a Supra, really? Like
but I don't even think the 300 ZX is like the same. Like the 300.
But those were all the cars that we're comparing, right?
It's like NSX, Supra, FD, and 300 ZX, turbo.
And that's the thing that gets me about
maybe
the
if
Supra.
you want the fucking GT, but no
the
one cares
GT,
about
which
that car.
one?
The
Mitsubishi, the 3000 GT, but
Oh, I mean that car was sick though, but like it was definitely like the odd man out. It was like the guy who you picked last on the fucking sports.
That's what I mean. That's why I didn't even pick him.
See, but I think now.
But those cars are sick though. Like when they're done up, are so sick. Go on.
To stop talking about those.
We literally talked about that at the brewery.
Yeah, it's just like I don't care about these cars. I think though, to go to the 300 ZX, I get why we're mentioning it, but in modern times, that's not actually the proper like stable car from the Nissan. Like realistically, you're comparing like a Skyline to an RX-7 to a Supra to an NSX.
Yeah, that's true. That's totally true.
I mean, I guess if you're like in the world. But like you're not comparing a GTR to an RX-7 in North America in 1995.
No, I'm saying modern day right now.
No, you're still not though, because the FD is not a $250,000 car like an R34 is a $200,000.
I mean the R32, but like the R32 or the R33. But I get what you're saying.
But the R34 and FD are like of the same.
Yeah. They're
of the
meant to
same
be.
year.
And when people like make the memes of like choose a car, they're never putting the 300ZX on. It's always like, here's an
Because the
NSX, here's a Subaru.
300ZX would go with the FC
Yo,
Yeah.
seriously though,
and a Mark III Supra.
maybe I should buy a Z32 now, because I bet you they're still relatively recently priced, and that is actually one of my favorite Nissans of all time. Is a Z32 2+2.
I feel like
Yeah,
you've
maybe I
got
should.
enough cars to deal with.
I know, but I mean, if I'm
No,
supposed to get one
Gerard
of these,
needs another Nissan.
yeah, the quadfecta.
What do you like? I don't know. There's not even a lot of ROI on that car for like market research. I feel like for SerialNine, it's like,
No, there's
so you want to
absolutely
build
none.
a Z32?
No,
Nope.
it's a car you want to own.
Yeah,
you
it's
want to own a
honestly
car. You want to own a car.
it's a car that I've kind of always wanted. But yeah,
I feel like I don't have much love for those cars.
That'd be like me buying an Austin Mini. You know, it's a car I've always wanted.
Is
but-
that a car you've always wanted?
Oh, dude, so bad. Yeah.
How am I only learning these things now? We've had so many episodes where it's like you can do whatever. Never has that once came up. What year Austin Mini do you want?
it's not even called an
69.
Austin Mini, but sure.
What does he want? A Mini Cooper. He wants a brand new Mini Cooper estate.
No,
Yeah. Yep.
Mini Cooper
I want a-
sedan.
I want a
Clubman.
Countryman.
Yeah,
I want a-
Countryman. That's what it is.
Oh, that's
You've
fun. I didn't know
you've
that.
seen the Boss Speed GTO, right? Like the Mitsubishi GTO, like the Boss Speed crazy one with like the NTO3s and shit.
Yeah, the Burgundy.
Yeah, like that thing is so sick.
That's
Like-
literally the car that Eric was talking about that Josh bought
Yeah.
today and showed you a photo of today.
Yeah, and I thought, I can't. I don't know. I don't got love for him. I guess I ain't got no
Yeah.
love.
No,
for them.
that's exactly that's me and G35 sedans and especially G35 coupes.
Yeah, G35 coupes are
I've
pretty
never seen a
bangable.
G35 coupe in my life that I liked.
I mean, definitely not the early ones. The G37 coupes definitely a lot more.
Ooh,
Yeah, I
those
saw
G30s Oh
one-
man, like they honestly, those cars are so fucking nice looking, and so well priced that like I want to try again.
Round two.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
I saw a G37 at the gas station the other day. And it's like, that's a really nice car. But always the issue is it's a really nice car today. And then the way that Nissans age, especially Gs and 330 or 350s, is when they age, they inevitably there becomes this point where they become affordable. People buy them, they make them awful, and then it makes them less desirable. Like because the examples that you see,
Man,
are on
shut up.
those,
How many fucking awful S13s do you think have been around? I can literally, like, when I think of
Yes.
S13s, I have to think pretty hard to think of nice ones. Because every time I think of an S13, all I think of is like shitty, drifty. Like,
Okay.
I saw one the other day and it had like 17x7s on it. And I'm just like, what? Like,
I
man,
don't-
it's 2021. How do you have 17x7s on an S13? You know what I mean? Like, what are you
No,
doing?
I get it. I agree with you, but
Or at
I'll
least
say
keep the
this.
stock 17 by
Yeah,
7s. or
just leave the
whatever.
fucking wheels. Like,
Yeah,
don't even change them.
I
for
guess
these
they're actually
other-
15s on the S13.
Yeah. 15s, yeah.
I'll say this. This is how I can do that. Is that I don't know of a lot of like super iconic G35s or like in like popular car culture media. So when you're like, oh, I can't think of a nice S chassis, it's like, I guess in my Rolodex of cars, I can just think of the cream of the crop of it very easily. So I could be like, Josh from Proceed, like, and I can go through those and be like, cool S13s, cool S14s. When you be like, name a cool G35, I'd be like, and the Rolodex just keeps going and going. And then what I'm surrounded by is mediocrity. So then I replace cool with like the mediocre examples. We should do a quick wrap up. We didn't say in the end about RX7s. So RX7 day, July 7th. I don't know how long this has been going on. Does anyone have any final thoughts about RX7s?
Great cars. Don't want to own one.
I in takeaway learned that Gerard went to college Kevin
Definitely.
wants a Mini Cooper. And Gerard wants a Z32, which is a very weird takeaway to learn from RX7s.
I
Yeah,
feel like that's the perfect thing to learn from like a really weird car.
yeah, actually, a good point. We learned some weird things about ourselves and each other today, grown as individuals
We have.
because of the RX7. So thank you, RX7 Day, for giving us this opportunity.
All right. That's it.
All right,
See you guys. Thanks for listening.
Sweet
bye.
dreams. Apex Heels out.
Thanks for listening to Serial Podcast 9.